How y'all doing? Good. Good. Me too. All right. Y'all ready for this? Close your eyes and listen. And let's take like 10, 15 seconds and we can listen for a second. Cool. We're back. And that's a fun exercise. I really like to do that, and my wife and I will do that when we travel, when we go to, especially out in nature or even in a crowded city. We'll just close our eyes and kind of get an auditory sense of the space. Because, your brain is turning most of that off. Your brain has a volume knob, and it's usually turning things down so you can focus on, your story. And so it's cool to hear what's actually happening. And what did we hear? We probably heard this ventilation here, right? Heard that? Everybody heard that? You probably heard a little bit of you all shuffling around, and if we were sound designing this scene, someone would have coughed. And you probably heard maybe a little of those, coolers over there. They're making a little sound. And so, if we're going to sound design that scene, this is a great place to start. We put some ventilation in, we put the coolers in, we'd make y'all making little sounds, and of course somebody coughs. And that's a really great way to, what'd y'all hear? That's a really great way to start and to give your characters a little, place to live and tell their stories. And as a sound designer, that's our job is to focus what you guys hear. So we would either accentuate some of those sounds, diminish some of those sounds, or make some sounds up entirely. And so say you guys came to this and, stuff was about to get really bad and weird. Maybe probably the first thing I'd do is take the ventilation and probably give it like an evil hum. And probably get like this, like, whoa. And you'd walk in and it'd be like, whoa. And if you're in a David Lynch film, you're just like, oh, this is everyday life. But, it's really, just from the sound that something bad is going to happen. And you can play that loud or you can play that really quietly. And do it more, subversively. If, say, this place is decrepit and it's falling apart and we're like in a bad part of town, or we're going to rally to save this place, or it's just, abandoned but somehow still has electricity, then maybe those beer coolers would be super noisy. Maybe those compressors would be on their last legs and be going, and just from the sound of this, that this place is falling apart. Those are the ways you can take these sounds and tell stories with them. And one more, say someone in here is having either physical or mental trauma, and they walk in and they're focused on themselves. They're not really focused on what's happening out here. So we may use the blood rushing in their head, or a lot of times people will say, please put a heartbeat in there, or now it's kind of de rigueur to have the tinnitus sound that's kind of like the person coughing, like it's got to be in there if someone's having some sort of trauma. And all these sounds, like my voice would be going, and everything would be diminished, because the story is about the person and whatever is happening to them. And it's not really about this space. And so, there are a few ways we could use sound to talk about this space and sound design this space. And that was a cold open. My name's Lyman Hardy. I'm a sound designer. And I'm a partner at Stuck On. We do post-production, and my other partners are Allison Terrell and Park Gregg. And, probably most of y'all are at least somewhat aware, post-production happens after the edit. After everything's done, we come in and we do color correction, we do visual effects, sound design, and mix. And it's kind of this magic place where it turns into a movie. It becomes, it becomes the thing. And it's really fun to watch that happen and to make it happen. And we've been doing it about 18 years. We've had the privilege to work with a bunch of great directors. Jeff Nichols, we worked with on Take Shelter, Mud, and most recently Bikeriders. Keith Maitland, we got to do Tower and Dear Mr. Brody with him. Ben Masters, we did Deep in the Heart, the Texas wildlife story, and Rick Linklater and Jason Newlander, who's about to talk. We worked on Fugitive Dreams with him. And I want to talk a little bit about backgrounds and just start simple. And let's talk about insects and frogs. They're simple sounds, but they can really, change the way a narrative feels. And let's talk about cicadas. I want to talk about a movie called Tower that we worked on a few years back. And if you haven't seen it, it's a really powerful film by Keith Maitland. It's the story of the first school shooting, and it's told from the survivors and the people who stopped it. It's told from their perspective. And it's a mix of rotoscope and archival footage. And that kind of just puts, the way that he told it that way, it really puts you in the shoes of the people who lived it, and also puts you kind of in the time and space when it happened, which was 1966. August, hence the cicadas. And I'm going to tell you about this scene. This is Claire Wilson James, and she was the first person shot on that day. And she was 8 months pregnant, and she had to lie on this hot pavement, shot immobile for 90 minutes until Artley Snuff and his college buddy came and rescued her. And so it's, it's a horrific thing that I really wanted to get right because I wanted to get her memory right. And luckily, if you could use that word, a radio station on campus put a microphone out and captured this whole ordeal. And so, you could hear the weird ways that the bullets would bounce off the buildings. The sounds of the ricochet, but you could also hear the cicadas. And I had just happened to record the same species of cicada the summer before. And so I had these recordings of cicadas I could use. And so let's listen to the scene and then let's talk about these cicadas.
I just wanted to close my eyes. I tried not to move.
Just stay still. It'll be okay, right?
I just act like I was dead so he wouldn't shoot me again. The concrete was so hot that at some point I just decided I can't take it anymore.
When I came out from under those hedges, I knew something had to be done. Someone had to go out there and get him.
I just remember looking up at the sky. It was so blue. And just thinking, I guess this is it.
Well, so if y'all haven't seen this, it's a really powerful film. You should really check it out. But let's talk about what the cicadas were doing in that scene. So first off, they had a few jobs to do, and they did them all well. They were accurate. They told the story accurately, which in a documentary, in this particular documentary especially, was important. But more importantly, they talk about how hot it was. You know, she talks about how hot it was, but we already know it's hot because those cicadas are there telling us how hot it is. And third, and I think most importantly, they create a sense of tension because they're rhythmic, and rhythm talks about time, and they're not only rhythmic, but they're very slow. They have that slow rise and slow decay, and that really, you know, just can, to me, it just made it feel agonizingly slow. So it feels slow, it feels hot, it feels like you're stuck laying on that concrete forever. And so, you know, those cicadas had a lot of heavy lifting to do. I think they did an admirable job in that scene. Yay! Your applause for the cicadas. All right, let's talk about frogs. There's a cute little guy up there. And we're going to talk about Jason's film, Fugitive Dreams. And I'll let him talk about more what it is, but it is basically two drifters drifting through this really crazy American dreamscape. And we're gonna go to this forest scene here, and our character John has suffered really a traumatic injury and wakes up in a forest that I don't think exists. I don't think we're in reality here, and so my goal working on this forest was to make it feel surreal, to make it feel like a place that could exist, but definitely doesn't exist. And so I use these frogs. The frogs were the main way I did that. And we'll play this clip and then we can talk about these frogs.
Mary? Mary?
All right, cool. Definitely a forest you don't want to wake up in. So yeah, I used coqui frogs as the source material for that background, for the coqui background. I think coqui frogs are amazing, and if you've ever got to experience them, they're loud first of all, and the way they have these amazing polyrhythms back and forth. I imagine them at the end of every night high-fiving each other, being like, great show, man.
There was way more than frogs in that.
Yes.
There was like snake sounds and rattles and things.
There were cicadas and frogs. There were two sounds. And so the coquis were, like, I used a really super slowed down version, and I used a kind of slowed down version. And so, those coquis are obviously not indigenous to these piney woods, so it's wrong, but they're frogs, so it's right. So you have this kind of, balance of wrong and right in this forest. And the cicadas, while they're cicadas, they're also slowed down and messed with, so they're also wrong and right. So it feels natural, but definitely no place that at least I've ever been. And so, those are two ways. Like with the cicadas, it's very natural, very realistic portrayal. With the frogs, it's, very messed with. But two ways, you just use a simple natural element and make a very, tell a story with these elements. Frogs. And so we talked a little bit about background elements. Let's talk about foreground elements, and let's talk about trains. And trains are so cool sounding. They are ubiquitous. We have one about a block from our house, and it's one of my favorite sounds. But they can say so much. They can say, it's lonely. They can say it's desolate. They can say it's urban. They can say it's industrial. If it's in the 1800s, they can say civilization is coming to this place. Trains, you can do a lot with trains. And in Jason's film, our characters are train hopping. They're riding across America on this train. They spend a good deal of time on the train. So Jason and I talked about how the train was also going to be a character in this film. And so I use these trains in a few different ways. And so, or this train, there's only one. And as if our character's on the train and they're peaceful, everything's fine. The train is very kind of soft. It's very muted. But the more, if there's fighting or whatnot on the train gets rattlier, it gets squeakier, it gets rumblier. And there are a few cases where our characters, again, go into this, I don't know if there's a spell being cast or if they're in some dream state, but the actual train falls away, and I don't use any sounds of a train, but I use sounds that are like the sound of a train. Like I use rumbles or metal screeches, or for the wheels going over the tracks, I slow down puma growls and use those, and so I just spoiled it all for you. So I'm going to play you a couple of scenes, and you can kind of hear how these how this train changes. You can hear in the first scene they're just playing cards, and the train is pretty natural. It's gotten a little rumbly because stuff's about to go down. But in the second scene, especially as you see it go by, you'll hear all these squeaks and all this terrible sound, and you'll know by the sound of the train that things are getting tense. And then you'll also see some of these kind of dream sequences, and you'll get to hear some of the ghost train, for lack of a better word.
Ain't nothing wrong with me. Everybody else in the world is fucked. Amen. It's your turn, by the way. Nice one. What do you think, Bob? Is I really gonna like this guy or what? Biblical name, I believe.
I don't recall such a name.
All right, crazy stuff going on there. play one more clip and then we can talk about these trains.
Who's Henri? Last night you said Henri would like me.
I don't know what you're talking about. Do you know?
Yeah, so there you go. Weird stuff going on that train, and the train is talking about that weird stuff. And also, great. Little Mazarin did part of that score, and I think they just did a really beautiful, haunting job. But yeah, those are a few different ways you can take just regular sounds and use them to tell a story. And sometimes overtly and sometimes not so overtly, advance the narrative with sounds. And, when you watch a movie, like every sound has been put there on purpose. So, always take that into account and try and figure out what other, what part of the story is being told that the actors and the characters aren't telling you. This has been my Nerd Night Talk. Thanks so much.
All right, fantastic. All right, thank you, Lyman. All right, we're going to do some Q&A. So actually, I'm going to start. I have a question for you. I love how the whole truth is beauty and beauty is truth concept. It doesn't matter if the sounds are accurate, if they make the message come across. So what's the weirdest sound you've ever used?
That's a great question, and I'm kind of drawing a blank right now.
Where were those growls in the train?
They were that sound. That was a puma growl. It was going, but you'd slow it down and go, it becomes, ostensibly the wheels rolling over the track.
Yeah.
I could tell you, my grandparents had this top game when I was a kid. It's like a wooden board, and it had these little places that the top had to go through, and you pull the string and you go, and somehow my parents wound up with it, and when I was going through their stuff, I found it, and I was like, oh, that game. And so I have it in a closet, and it's been used on one movie, on Keith Maitland's Dear Mr. Brody, and I used it at a kind of point where things start going very wrong, and distorted it and did a lot of stuff. But, it was just this top game I knew since I was a kid.
Awesome. Great. Okay, next question.
Thank you. Love the talk. We're at a very interesting point in the form of media where we're having a whole new player of artificial intelligence coming into the game. Do you imagine that AI is going to do much to the sound side of your business? Because it's clearly going to do stuff to the visual side, and it's clearly doing stuff to the writing side.
Oh, I think it's gonna. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it already is way. Sorry. It's already, making some of, like right now we're in this weird sweet spot where it makes our jobs a little easier. It makes noise reduction a little easier. It does various things to make things a little easier. But I mean, yeah, there's going to get to a place where you can type a prompt and say, I want it to sound like this, and it's going to sound like this. And for a lot of things, probably it'll be fine. And probably, maybe I'm being optimistic and it's just going to put us right out of business. But, like I just went through and talked about 3 instances of using these really just basic sounds to tell a story. And is it going to do that? I mean, maybe. We don't really know. So I guess that's my answer.
We don't really know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are there.
Yeah.
Thanks. Great tower, great movie.
Thanks.
You kind of got me like my wheels spinning here, and I guess the question is there any sound, like background sound, footsteps, crowd noise, frogs, lightning, that's actually captured at the time of the filming, or is it all post-production?
I mean, if it is captured, it's on accident, because they're really focused on dialogue, and they want to get the dialogue so clear, and so that you can manipulate it. So you can, if someone starts talking whispering, and then they talk real loud and then they start whispering, you want to be able to do these volume ramps without your background sounds and everything else going up and down and up and down. And so, yeah, sometimes there are, but it's and sometimes it's unavoidable, but it's mostly on accident.
Hi, thank you for your talk. I was wondering, maybe this is an unfair question, how do you sound design for silence? So, for example, if you've ever been out after a thick snowfall and everything's dead, how do you sound design for that? How do you sound design in absence?
Well, I mean, you've got to have something there. I mean, you could just say, well, you have nothing, but that would feel weird and wrong. You probably just have like you go to some flavor of noise at that point, like a white noise, and then you just play it so imperceptibly low that it's not really there.
Okay, any more questions? Yes, a couple more.
There's like certain films or scenes in films that you might show to someone if you wanted them to like fall in love with cinematography, for example. So I'm curious if there are like scenes or films that if you wanted someone to like really fall in love with what you do, with the sound design side of things, that you would be like, oh my God, you have to see this.
Well, I mean, anything by David Lynch for sure. And I knew this, anything like the Coen brothers also, they use sound in such a cool way. I'm of course gonna, if you ask me this question, I'm gonna draw a blank, but I'll tell you in about 15 minutes.
Please do.
The Conversation.
What's that?
The Conversation?
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
You know the movie?
Yes.
That's my favorite sound design film. You had a question?
Well, he basically asked already.
Okay.
All
right. Well, I'm going to give you one more to close out. Have you ever used the Wilhelm scream?
Of course. They make you sign a paper that you're going to use it in something.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much, Lyman. Thank you all for coming out.